Welcome back to the show where we give you all the Dolphins news you need to know about each and every single Sunday. If you like that, guys, please go check out the channel. It helps out a lot. This first news story comes from Pro Football Rumors, and it's a big one. Big milestone coming for Dolphins and Ryan Tannehill. Next week marks a big milestone for Dolphins quarterback Ryan Tannehill. As Armando Salguero of the Miami Herald writes, Dolphins doctors, coaches, and the quarterback will meet soon to decide how much work the quarterback will do during OTA sessions, and that will begin on Tuesday and run into mid-June. The expectation is Tannehill, who missed the last month of the 2016 season with a partially torn ACL and all of last season with a complete tear, will be able to participate with no limitations, sources tell Salguero. But even if Dolphins give him the go-ahead, coaches could still opt to take it easy with Tannehill in an effort to keep him healthy and get extra reps for backups Brock Osweiler and David Fales. So not much of opinion opinion on this. Obviously, it's kind of straightforward. I agree they should take it slow with him. It's really good news, and I think it's underestimatedly good news that he's going to be able to play in OTAs. And people are like, yeah, obviously, for the obvious reasons. You don't want him to be rusty. He hasn't played in 2 years. All of those things are obvious. The thing that concerns me the most is he's walking into an offense and players and personnel on this offense that he has not played with. He's got to get used to a new center and Daniel Kilgore. He has to get used to receivers. Obviously, that comes with timing and anticipation. So he has to grow that over the offseason. And I mean, as an NFL fan for a very, very long time now, getting new players on your team and chemistry, especially with a quarterback, is a very, very, very real thing. It's very underestimated, and you see that a lot with some of these teams that build their teams through free agency. It takes just a little bit of time to kind of learn what each other's strengths and weaknesses are, and just timing coming in and out of breaks. Some people are quicker, some people are slower. If you've ever played quarterback, I've never played quarterback on any level, but I'm just saying, like, if you've ever had any kind of interaction with football, timing, and even if you play Madden, for God's sakes, which I guess is a bad example because everybody kind of gets out of their breaks sooner, but what I'm trying to say is it does matter a lot. Like, it really, really does take an effect on your teammates and your team. So it's really, really important that the quarterback develops that relationship with his teammates. That way the offense can run at an optimal level, and hopefully they get to do that. And I think that's very underestimated when it comes from, and that's why it's such big news that he's coming back so soon. It's not like he can only play in training camp. He's coming back at the start of the entire league year. So that's huge news for us. That means he's going to get a lot of work in with the rookies and the new vets that have come in, and so on and so forth. And obviously there have already been reports that Tannehill has worked out multiple times with Danny Amendola and some of his new players here in Miami. So all of those point to great news for us, and it should make the offense a better unit as a whole. So not just looking at that from the obvious, but really, really digging into that. Speaking of what, but this next news story comes from Bleacher Report, where they counted down the toughest matchups in training camp, the biggest positional battles. Ours was linebacker, and it seems to be linebacker each and every single season. The Miami Dolphins, again, this comes from Bleacher Report, the Miami Dolphins might have an athletic pair or nucleus of young linebackers who can make noise in 2018, or the linebacker spot may be the defense's biggest weakness. The most proven commodity among the group is the 6-year veteran Kiko Alonso, who has amassed 115 tackles in each of his 2 seasons with Miami. But there is a reason Alonso on his third team, a shortcoming that becomes evident every time he gets blown off the point of attack. The team drafted Raekwon McMillan last year to add physicality to the middle of the defense, but McMillan lost his entire rookie season to a knee injury. Fellow former Buckeye star Jerome Baker is a rangy 229-pounder, but he's a bit undersized, and his next NFL game will be his first. Then there's Stephon Anthony, who has the experience starting on the strong side of the Dolphins that the Dolphins need. But Anthony hasn't come close to living up to the first-round pick the New Orleans Saints invested in him in 2015. It seems as though Alonso will man the weak side with McMillan in the middle, but Dolphins still need a Sam. And none of those jobs outside of maybe Alonso are carved in stone. You know what? This is a great point. And it brings up a great topic for Dolphins fans, because when you really think about this linebacker unit, I do not want Stephon Anthony sniffing the field. He's not a very intelligent player. He's more of a guy who is, I don't even want to say instinctual. He's just not a good linebacker in my opinion. I just do not like him. Kiko Alonso, he's been up and down. But moving him out of the middle where it's a less physical position, he can play on the outside, which is more of his natural role. I do like that. Maybe his play would improve, and like it said in the article there, he's not very good at the point of attack. And what that means is in the middle of the field, you have to get through a lot of trash, and that's where the term thumper comes from. And when people, is he a Mike Singletary or is he a Ryan Shazier, where he's more of like a athletic hybrid type of a guy, or Dalen Buchanan, who's more of a new age middle linebacker. Kiko Alonso really doesn't seem to be either one of those things. He's a man without a position. He's a player that really is lost. It seems like he's like in the Twilight Zone, where he just doesn't belong. He is not big enough. He's not physical enough, even though he's like 240. Like, he's ridiculously big for his size. And I think cutting some weight, being a little bit more slim on the outside might help his game out a lot. Because Kiko Alonso is a very smart player. He's a very instinctual linebacker. When he was on the Buffalo Bills, man, he wreaked havoc. In 2016, he kind of did some of those same things. He was obviously getting in passing lanes. He had 2 interceptions. He had 1 return for a touchdown. So I think moving him to the outside will help him a lot. And he is a sideline-to-sideline guy. He is a super athletic linebacker. So I still have faith in Kiko, because he has shown in the past that he can be a very good linebacker, even on a Pro Bowl level. Obviously winning Defensive Rookie of the Year with the Buffalo Bills. So I still have faith in him, but I definitely don't think he can rest on anything this offseason, because there's definitely more competition. Don't forget about Quentin Poling and Chase Allen as well. Those players look to have, not Poling as much, but definitely Chase Allen. He showed some serious promise in his rookie season. So Kiko Alonso just can't, coast this year, which is a good thing. And it should be good for our linebacker unit too, since we do have so many options. And again, like I said, don't forget about Chase Allen, Mike McCray, who really, in my opinion, could be he's more of a thumper as well. He can play in space. I do think he can do that, but he is definitely more of the traditional guy. But Mike McCray is also a very talented linebacker that you guys have to keep your eyes on as well. So again, the room is definitely more stacked than it has been in years past. This next news story also comes from Bleacher Report. Ryan Tannehill isn't the Dolphins' long-term solution at the quarterback position. It's always important to remember one fundamental truth about the NFL. The league isn't fair, or even equal. And there is never a sense of cosmic balance that spreads bad luck evenly. That applies both to teams and players, and it's a reality Ryan Tannehill knows well. The Miami Dolphins quarterback hasn't been on the field for a regular season snap since December 11th, 2016. Which is when he partially tore his ACL, and he suffered his first of 2 knee injuries. The second coming during training camp in 2017, when he re-injured the same knee and needed to have season-ending knee surgery. Tannehill knows all about the NFL's uneven distribution of soul-shattering injury luck. Now the circumstances have aligned for the perfect offseason storm, which could give him further experience with the league's coldness. He's been entering his age 30 season in 2018, putting him between a young quarterback who's still developing and an old one who's decaying. Dolphins coach Adam Gase may whisper sweet nothings about his quarterback in the offseason, as he did while speaking to the media Wednesday, but his actions when Tannehill was healthy carry much more weight. Now, I want to stop the bus right here. I'm not trying to get off on a rant, but I do want to point out a point here. And Bleacher Report's crazy. They say some crazy things at times, and I definitely, and if you've listened to the show for a long period of time, you know that we've caught him on some infactual stuff. One thing I want to point out here is when they're acting the article is portraying it like Tannehill's never done anything right under Adam Gase, and I hate when I read articles like this because yeah, he did. He went 7-1, and that's why Adam Gase is spewing sweet nothings about Ryan Tannehill. I just wanted to point that out. Just wanted to stop the bus for 2 seconds. Okay, so continuing on with the article, he didn't trust Tannehill to throw far downfield, or well, that's not true. He was. We'll talk more about this after the article. Or throw much at all. And now the quarterback he wouldn't lean on, the one who struggles against pressure, is a salary cap boulder who's recovering from reconstructive knee injury. That's also not true. That's already a few strikes against Tannehill and his long-term future in Miami. The possible final blow, the Dolphins' 11th overall slot and their wandering eye, which has drifted towards Baker Mayfield. At the Scouting Combine, Gase said exactly what he that he was expected to say about Tannehill, or more accurately, all he could say. He called Tannehill a physical freak who is progressing well in his recovery, per Lindsey Jones of USA Today, adding that the 2012 8th overall pick could be ready for the team's offseason program in April. The table-pounding statement came when Gase was asked about Tannehill's future and where the Dolphins could go with their quarterback depth chart. When the new league year starts on March 14th, Tannehill will be the only quarterback with a single NFL start on the Dolphins roster. Jay Cutler, Matt Moore, and David Fells will be free agents. This is obviously before the draft, I'm assuming. So that's why David. So now we have David and Brock Osweiler as well, which is shaky ground. But publicly, at least, and it's still shaky ground. Publicly, at least, it doesn't sound like a problem for Gase. Let's see here. It's possible and arguably likely that Tannehill will face a threat from a high draft. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna skip over this. I just wanted to read that first half, and we'll read this last half as well. He improved as a deep thrower, but still ranked only 9th with adjusted percentage of 47.4 on throws that travel 20 yards or more through the air, according to Pro Football Focus. That percentage is inflicted by his lack of attempts too. He also isn't comfortable under pressure, even after 5 seasons and 77 games of NFL experience. In 2016, Tannehill recorded a passer rating of 49.1 when under pressure per Pro Football Focus, which ranks 7th worst out of the 33 quarterbacks who logged at least over 200 pass attempts. His play, contract, and injury have put the Dolphins in a position that seems difficult, but should instead be treated as a golden opportunity to draft a better and cheaper quarterback. NFL roster construction is a process rooted in maximizing value. The goal is to squeeze as much as possible out of every dollar before smacking up against the salary cap. That means discarding veterans who are broken, unproducing, or unnecessarily expensive. Tannehill is all three, which means he's beginning of the end in Miami could come on opening night of the 2018 draft. So I wanted to read that, not because, I mean, obviously it's outdated, and obviously coming to find out all that was a smokescreen. I don't think the Dolphins would have drafted Josh Rosen if he did fall to the 11th overall pick. I think it was a smokescreen. I think they wanted to do that so they could get a talented defensive player, or just a talented player in general, because of the running quarterbacks. I do believe that. Now, there was a lot of smoke, and I mean a lot of smoke, and but I do think most of it was that. I could be totally wrong. The Dolphins could have taken Josh Rosen, but they didn't really seem very interested in quarterbacks throughout the entire draft. Not to the extent that we believed it to be, with all these articles constantly coming out about how the Dolphins are looking into quarterbacks. I mean, there were so many articles about Luke Falk and had his strong connections with Gase and the organization, and obviously that wasn't true, because the Dolphins would have taken him at some point, or at least maybe moved some draft equity to acquire him, and they never did. So I do think that the quarterback interest for the Dolphins was overblown, and it definitely was hyped up. There could have been some interest there, but I don't think it was as I don't know what the word I'm looking for here is, but it wasn't as crazy, I think as it was meant, or that it was. I don't know what I guess it just wasn't as crazy as everybody was saying it was, and again, that's a definitely difference of opinion, because I know there are Dolphins fans out there that think differently than me. But again, I just wanted to read that article just to show the negative side of Tannehill and what other people might think of him, and be like, people who don't like Tannehill might bring up. I thought there were a couple interesting things in there. Like I said, people act like Tannehill's never done anything right in his life. Anytime you hear somebody talk about him, and I always, unless it's a Dolphins fan, I always attribute that to the fact that none of them watch Dolphins games. We are rarely, especially in the Midwest and even in some southern states, we are never played on local television. Most of the time, you can only get Dolphins games if you're in southern Florida, really, and not even central Florida, because most of the time it's Jaguars games. So, yeah, or it's Tampa Bay. So I think most of the ignorance comes from the lack of watching Tannehill. But, again, just to point out some facts, he was top 7, I want to say, in yards per attempt, which means he was throwing the ball down the field. And they kind of tried to undercut my dude when they were talking about how he was one of the better, I can't remember the exact quote, but he ranked fairly, he was 9th in throwing percentage down the field. So his down the field accuracy was pretty good. I mean, 9th is a top 10 quarterback stat, right? But they were like, he rarely did it. That's not true. Go back and watch all those 2016 games. We attempted a lot of throws 20 yards or more down the field, and that's not even a joke. We did it a lot. I mean, if you think some of think about the first 3 big plays of the season. When you think about the touchdown to Kenny Stills against the Patriots, that was a deep throw. The touchdown that was dropped when Tannehill threw it to Kenny Stills against the Seahawks, that was dropped. And then you think about the Cincinnati Bengals game where Tannehill pump faked and then threw a beautiful ball to Kenny Stills for like an 80-yard touchdown. That is one of the more common misconceptions about his game. There is a compilation that I would love for you guys to look up on Tannehill's deep throws. It's every single one of his deep throws. You guys have to watch that video because it really you'll be surprised about how accurate he actually is and has been, not just in 2016, but most of his career. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's definitely not as bad as people portray it to be. That is for sure. So, again, I just wanted to bring this up. Obviously, the only things that were factual that were brought up in terms of him not being productive was, and the thing that I really can't defend him, the thing that I will bring up, the thing that I think he has gotten better with over his career, and people always bring up the football instincts aren't where they need the pocket presence isn't where it needs to be. I disagree with that. I think that's always been overblown. But the blitzing factor has always been something that he has struggled with. And I think that has gotten way better, and you saw in 2016 he has matured in that area. But before 2016, and especially before 2016, when you think about all those Rex Ryan games that he has lost throughout his career, especially in the 2013 season where we had a chance to go to the playoffs, all we had to do was beat the Jets. And it was a very bad Jets team, and we somehow lost to them because Tannehill really struggled against exotic pressures. And that is something he struggled with for a long time in his career, especially in 2015. There were a lot of sacks where he needed to check to the slot cornerback blitzing, and he never did. And that's something that he has struggled with throughout his career. That's probably my biggest critique of him is blitz pickups. And that's that's one of the biggest parts of being a quarterback. And that's one of the bigger parts of the mental side of football is always understanding what your opponent is trying to do to you. And that is the biggest thing, especially when it comes to quarterbacks. You always have to understand where the pressure is coming from, where are the weaknesses, where are the holes in the blitz, where can I throw it in my in open windows. And that is one of, if not the hardest thing to master as a quarterback, and that separates a lot of good quarterbacks from a lot of great quarterbacks. And I thought Tannehill, the game that I looked to, and I'm like, he really matured in that area, was against the Cardinals. That team, who was their defensive coordinator at the time? I can't remember, but he loved to send pressure. They were the second-ranked defense in the NFL at the time. They were number 1 in pressures, I think, or something crazy. Or they were top 5 in sacks and pressures. And I think their blitz percentage was, I think, second to only Buffalo at the time. Or maybe it was number 1. And he just lit them up. He absolutely lit them up. And I was like, and you could see in the game, and back, not to, because we've been talking about this for a while, but Dal Loggins said it the best when he was talking about his command over the line of scrimmage. And I think that you saw that, especially in 2016. Not only that Cardinals game, but both of the wins against the Bills, or excuse me, not both of them, but the home game against the Bills, where he put the game away with 2 big plays: the rollout throw to Juice Landry, and the touchdown to Kenny Stills. On that play, they sent it was some kind of a blitz. I think it was an A gap or something crazy like that. He picked it up beautifully, and obviously threw a dart for the touchdown. So I definitely think he's gotten better at that throughout his career, and that's definitely one of the bigger areas that he needed to do. So I do agree with that article. In the past, he really did struggle with that, and like I said, he really did improve, and as he should. He's a 30-year-old quarterback now, and I think he's definitely matured in that area of his game. And one of the things I think attribute to that in terms of his under the pressure, I don't know how they measure this, and I could totally be wrong about this, but if they're just ranking in pressures alone, throughout this man's career, man, other than 2016, he had super inconsistent offensive lines. And even in 2016 he did. But like I said, I think the maturity really showed up in that on that particular season. But I would just say, in his younger days, it was easy to pressure him because of how bad that offensive line was. Just to make one excuse for him. But like I said, it definitely was probably 1,000% the biggest hole in his game throughout his career. And like I said, I think he has definitely, just watch the 2016 eight game stretch where he won 7-1. Just watch that game. Now, he showed in other games, to bring up another criticism against the Ravens especially, he showed that he still needs to work on that. But I definitely think he's gotten way better at it. Alright, this next news story comes from Spin Zone. Miami Dolphins, one free agent the team must add. Due to a massive contract, the Miami Dolphins were unfortunately forced to cut superstar defensive tackle Ndamukong Suh this offseason. While he may not have been a monster on the star sheet, anybody that understands football or watches films know the kind of impact that he had on the Miami Dolphins defense. Grading out as the number 2 run stuffer according to Pro Football Focus Edge, Suh is a difference maker the team will miss no matter what moves they make. With that said, the man who ranked number 3 on that same Pro Football Focus list is still available as a free agent. Jonathan Hankins is just sitting out there right now, and at this point in free agency, he likely won't command a ton of money. The bulk of the $17 million the Dolphins saved against the cap this year for cutting Suh will be coming off the books come June 1st. Miami needs to work out a deal with Hankins and officially ink him as soon as the funds come available. After not drafting a defensive tackle in this year's draft, there are concerns about the interior defensive line moving forward. Now, after adding Akeem Spence to a group of young tackles, Hankins could solidify this group as a strength rather than a weakness. With the addition of Spence, and if Jordan Phillips and Devon Godchaux continue to develop, you can make the case that the addition of Hankins could make the position stronger as a whole than it was last season, even without Suh. The group can be made to appear even stronger when you consider William Hayes is versatile enough to play inside, and that the young players like defensive end Charles Harris, linebackers Raekwon McMillan, and Jerome Baker can actually take advantage of strong tackle play. Unlike the group from last season, the tackle's job to occupy blockers and make life easier for everyone else, and an infusion of youth and speed this season may make life much easier for them in 2018. Keep an eye out for the Fins to make some moves after June 1st. Hopefully they make the right decisions and add Hankins, who is by far the best option available on the market. Quite frankly, it's a miracle that he's still there for the team to even have a chance at him. He makes a tremendous amount of sense. Now, whether I don't know, man. If the Dolphins view him as a 4-3 defensive tackle, he is 1,000% a nose tackle. He's not sacking the quarterback, and he's definitely not the quickest, fastest guy. But man, he is a boulder in the middle of the defense. He is just somebody you cannot move. And for a guy like Matt Burke, who has said repeatedly that our defensive tackles are in a rotation and our backup defensive tackles do get a lot of snaps, which is true if you've watched our defense, especially last season, the Jonathan Hankins would have a tremendous role in this defense and would make our defensive line rotation more versatile and more effective. And I think that would be a huge signing for the Dolphins. And like the article pointed out, it would not be a ton of money for a player that would make a great amount of impact. So maybe we get him on a one-year deal, cheap money, and he could really make a difference in this defense. And again, like I said, the third ranked, if you're a Pro Football Focus guy, I am not. He was the third ranked Pro Football Focus run defender in 2017. And obviously he was playing on probably the worst defense I've seen personally in decades, for God's sakes. That Colts defense was just straight garbage. This next news story is more of a throwaway thing, in case you guys missed it. This comes from the Finsider. Dolphins begin spring practices on Tuesday. This upcoming Tuesday. Just to run through this really quickly, when Ryan Tannehill takes some snaps under center in practice, he will have a new supporting cast around him. When Tannehill was under center last year, Mike Pouncey was on his center, and he still had Jarvis Landry and J.J. All three are now gone and have been replaced. The Miami Dolphins will begin their practices on Tuesday, and it will be interesting to see how they manage Tannehill, who will be practicing for the first time since training camp. If Tannehill doesn't practice much, it means that coaches can get a closer look at David Vales, Brock Osweiler, and Bryce Petty. You can, see here. Yeah, that's about it. So yeah, I mean, it's a big deal. I'm sure anybody who's going to be attending that is going to be super excited. I don't know. Wait, no, training camps. OTAs are not open to the fans. I don't know if I can remember. I could be wrong about that. My memory goes from left to right. It's like a dang, never-ending black hole, for God's sakes. But I'm pretty sure that training camp is only when fans can attend. I could be wrong. Could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. Anyway. This next news story, the Miami Dolphins hot take generator for 2018. So this seems to be a drink the Kool-Aid moment. It seems to be a stop the bus moment. We might have a lot of stop the bus moments in this particular article. This comes from, I think, the Finsider. The NFL offseason, again, this is the hot take generator. The NFL offseason is a time of rumors, speculation, hot takes, and some news. Even as the teams progress through their offseason training and their training programs, there is not a lot of earth-shattering news coming out of the league. However, the discussion of the NFL never stops. Today, we are going to help you with your ability to join the discussion. Eric Thompson over at SB Nation, Minnesota Vikings site, Daily Norseman, put together a hot take generator for us. The entire Miami Dolphins roster is included. From the top players on the team down to the newly signed undrafted free agents and practice squad players from last year who signed futurist contracts after the 2017 season. Eric basically came up with a way for one button to scour the internet and come up with the hottest takes from the news about a player. For example, here is the latest take on Miami Dolphins' Matt Hack. Matt Hack is a real standout in the middle of the defense. What in the world does that mean? Saving you some time actually trying to do the research on how the Dolphins will play this year with the ease of one button. Amazing results, wouldn't you say? Check out the Miami Dolphins Hot Take 2018 generator. Alright, so I'm going to click this button, and whatever comes up, it's apparently going to be a hot take. Isaiah Ford, this is the hot take. Isaiah Ford is a matchup nightmare as a red zone target. Could I actually defend this and actually say this is true? If I'm not mistaken, and I think I'm getting him mixed up with Deontay Carew. I don't know if he had 10 touchdowns in college, but I remember reviewing that draft class. It was very, very long. That was Adam Gase's first season, but I'm pretty sure Deontay Carew was the guy who got into the end zone a lot. I cannot remember Isaiah Ford's stats, but is Isaiah Ford going to be a matchup nightmare as a red zone target? No, probably not. So that definitely is a hot take. We'll do about 2 more of these. Kalen Ballage is a can't-miss player in a 4-3 defense. So that's just stupid because it's not true because he doesn't play defense. I'm assuming that's what that means. So this generator is not really working out too much. Kiko Alonso is incredibly dynamic because of his size. Obviously, we're going to stop the bus on this one. That is a that is hit the brakes. Hit those brakes because we're probably going to die. So obviously that's not true. We'll do two more. Torrey McTyer is a natural in an offense that's built around him. See, some of these are just stupid. These aren't even hot takes. Mike McCray is giving opposing coordinators nightmares on runs between the tackles. That is not a hot take. That could actually happen. If you guys watch Mike McCray in college at Michigan, that could actually be a thing. Chase Allen is far too slow in the shotgun formation. Obviously, that's stupid. He doesn't play offense. Zach Stirrup struggled mightily with his world-class quickness. Yeah, I mean, all right, we're going to stop right there. This is some of these were good, some of these weren't. Francis Owusu is a beast as a possession receiver. I love Francis Owusu, and I think he could actually be something special. Not something special, but he showed a lot of promise as an outside receiver in last year's preseason games. We'll see what happens this year. This is the last one we're doing, and I keep clicking this button. Kalen Ballage is making things complicated because of his heart. I don't know what the heck that is supposed to mean. If that was a stab at Maurice Hurst or what that was. But yeah, guys, that is actually all for the news, guys. And I know that sucks because we've only did half an hour of it, and but that is what it is, man. There's not a lot of news. Once the season starts, going again, definitely we're gonna have more news for you. But that's all the news you need to know about. Most of this other stuff is some stuff you just don't need to know about, like the hot take generator, whatever the heck that was. That was super disappointing. When I read that, I thought it was just going to be. And again, people have told me in the comment section below, you got to read these articles before you do them on the podcast. That was a perfect example of that. I really thought it was just going to be hot takes, and we would just go through each and single. It was literally the most gimmicky thing I've ever seen in my life. So yeah, that's disappointing. But again, just not a whole lot of news, but definitely some important stuff there. I would hopefully the Dolphins do something about Jonathan Hankins, because I do like that. And we went through this last off season with him. I did a couple videos on him, and a lot of people made a great point that he is a 3-4 nose tackle. And again, he would just be in a very, very minute role. He would definitely not be like a start, like he's not getting starter snaps, that's for sure, but he's definitely going to be in the rotation and gives us a lot of versatility and certain things we can do, and definitely helps our defense, especially since we're so spread out on our D-line and a wide 9. He definitely can anchor it at a high level, so we'll see what happens there. But that is going to be it, guys. I'm Skagster1083, and I will see you guys in the next one.